Welcome to Living Under New Mexico Skies, a podcast brought to you by Parnall Law. In this episode, we meet Chris Losack, visionary and owner of Astro Zombies, a legendary comic book, collectibles, and vinyl shop in Albuquerque. Our expansive conversation covers the first action figure and how Star Wars began the collectible figures industry. And since our conversation, the most expensive comic book ever sold, Superman #1, fetched over $9 million at auction. Hey, Chris, welcome to Living Under New Mexico Skies, man.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself, man. Who is Chris?
So my name is Chris Losack. I am the new owner of Astro Zombies. I've owned the place for about 2.5 years.
Cool. Cool.
I was a manager there for 6.5 years prior to that.
Wow.
And I've been a customer since the very first day he opened.
Wow.
In 1999.
Wow.
And I won his first contest. I still have the action figure, a 12-inch Darth Maul from Star Wars Episode 1.
Wow.
It's in my office.
Yeah.
But going even further back, I was born in Virginia on the East Coast, lived in Jersey and New York. My dad was in the Navy, so I was part of, Navy brat thing.
Yeah.
But my family is from Corrales. The Italian part of my family is from Corrales, New Mexico. In 1889, they settled here.
Wow.
And so
cool.
We're the second family to settle in Corrales.
Wow.
And so, we've had a huge farm out there. Fortunately, Grandma passed away a few years ago, and cousins and uncles have kind of sold some of the property. I also sold one of my 4 acres in order to buy Astro Zombies.
Nice.
Yeah. So that was as soon as my cousins sold the one next to me, and they were asking me to sell it for more money than it was worth. I saw that, I had the whole reason I started working at Astro Zombies is to buy the place.
Oh,
I knew that was my goal. I just had to make sure it was going to be worth it.
Yeah.
So, that all happened and I did. But I've lived in Corrales most of my life, except for, the first 5 years I was on the East Coast.
Dude, that's...
And, I still have the still on the farm. It was an apple orchard when I was growing up, but most of those trees are hitting 100 years old, and we've had some water issues because there's no water in the river.
I'm hearing we're in the middle of another drought again.
Yeah, so. I mean, it's been nice and wet.
Yeah.
But was there a monsoon season this year? Not really.
No.
Nope.
And I was explaining to someone the other day, when I first moved here 30 years ago, we had lightning storms.
Mm-hmm.
We were famous for that. People would go up to the crest and they'd go places to watch the lightning. I haven't seen that for years either.
We've had a few.
Right.
I heard, this is about 2 years ago, there was a rolling thunderstorm that lasted almost a half hour. And I was very impressed by that because not even in Chicago would I hear that long of a rolling thunderstorm. So it was
really
nice.
Cool. Yeah. So I've heard stories about Corrales too, about the farms. They were epic. I mean, that was rural. I've heard old folks, probably people you knew, your family knew, that said to me, I mean, there were the days when there was nothing out there. Nothing.
Nope.
And that drive from there to Albuquerque was country drive.
For sure.
Not anymore.
No, we get the tourists kind of driving through, just like you ever go on Rio Grande?
Yeah.
Because it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah.
Well, now Corrales also is one of those, and everybody driving through Rio Rancho, especially from say River's Edge and whatnot, when 550 was all torn up out there in Bernalillo, everybody started just going through Corrales. So now it's kind of a mess.
Yeah.
And the farm's gone basically. I've got 9 new neighbors. But it's not feasible to farm anyways because there's no water.
No, not anymore.
So what are you going to do?
And it's interesting you said that. I grew up on a farm in Illinois, and very rural, like that. 350 people lived in our town. And, it's interesting because I started complaining about encroachment and growth.
It's hard.
And, my son said to me, he goes, Dad, welcome to it. There's more people on the planet. They're coming. There's nothing you can do about it. So,
100%.
Yeah. So,
and I've accepted that.
Yeah. But that's really cool, though, man. I'm glad. And now Astro Zombies, man. Tell me about Astro Zombies. My story is I've driven past it for years. The first time I ever actually, I kind of looked at it and I said, I got to go in there. And then what happens? Decades go by. Life happens while you're busy making plans. And I've never gotten in there until recently when I came in and met you. So tell us about Astro Zombie, man.
So Astro Zombies was the brainchild of the former owner, Mike. And basically, he was working at Bow Wow Records. He had a record store on the East Coast. He's from Jersey.
Yeah.
He's a Jersey boy.
Yeah.
And there was a big gap in the late 90s for underground, the blockbusters and Hollywood videos were out there, but you couldn't rent a Racerhead or a Faster Pussycat Kill. Those things just weren't in the library.
Great story, real quick.
Yeah.
The Point, Harry Nielsen.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in Santa Fe, and I wanted to see the damn thing. So I go into the local video store there right downtown, and this is a great story. And I said, hey, I'd like to get The Point. And he said, well, unfortunately, the gentleman behind you has already reserved it for the evening.
Oh, wow.
Peter Buck from R.E.M.
Oh, shut up, really?
And I go,
what is he
what
doing?
are you doing? He goes, well, I'm staying at the hotel. I need something for my kids to watch.
For your kids?
Yes.
The Point.
Yes. So,
good kids, apparently.
But anyway, sorry to interrupt, man.
No, that's good. So needless to say, there was a place called Wavy Brain, and there was another place. But they had started to stop doing it, and so Mike saw this opportunity to have an arcade, because arcades weren't a thing back then.
Yeah.
They're kind of back now.
Yeah.
But Nintendo and Atari and all that stuff just destroyed arcades. Yeah. By the early '90s, nobody was going to arcades anymore. No. I remember the Tilt over in Coronado. It was the place to go when I was, when I was 10 years old.
Those places were huge.
Yeah. And they just. Once you could play the games at home, there was, So there wasn't an arcade really at all here in Albuquerque, except for the Tilt, and it was pretty run down.
Yeah.
So he added some collectible toys, and that's actually why I started going. I was already a toy collector.
Yeah.
I've been a comic book collector since I was 5. My uncle, who's technically my second cousin, it's like great cousin or whatever, it's my great aunt's son.
Yeah.
Anyways, he gave me his Amazing Spider-Man collection when I was 5. Ooh. Right as we moved back from the East Coast into Corrales.
Right.
So he gave me that collection, and that was just, that was the end of me not being interested in comic books. I had already played with the Mego toys, like I remember playing with Captain America and Spider-Man out in New York. And, they were cool toys, and I didn't really have toys because I was a broke-ass Navy kid, I had nothing. We lived on government food, etc.
But a great comic book collection.
Well, initially, of course, the most valuable one, I have all of them except for one of them, and the most valuable one is that one. And the reason I don't have it anymore is by the time I realized what it was, I was in middle school, and the front cover was already missing, and the back page was ripped in half. And I don't know if that was something that I did, or if that's how I got it. Needless to say, that's the first appearance of the Punisher, Amazing Spider-Man 129. It's a very, very valuable comic book. So by the time I realized what I had, somebody offered me $20. And when you're an 11-year-old in middle school, you're like, $20 is so it's gone.
Now, can I ask, in preparation, I know a little bit about comic books, but in preparation to speaking with you and having this conversation, did I see something like over $1 million for one of those original Spider-Man comic books?
So Amazing Fantasy 15 is the first appearance of Spider-Man, and it was the end of that run. And Amazing Fantasy was just a comic book where they just put one story in there, and it was one and done. And it was kind of Stan Lee and Steve Ditko's way to. They just wanted to put this story out there that, they were like, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. It's not going to hurt the book because the book is done.
Yeah.
Well, it was so popular, of course, we got a Spider-Man #1. So you've seen a few of those and some Spider-Man #1s in high grades. They'll sell for over $1 million. Superman 1 just sold for 8.5 or 8.6.
Wow.
Yeah. And those are graded comic books that are darn near perfect.
Yeah.
There's a grading scale of 0 to 10.
Right.
10 being the ultimate and 10 being almost unreachable.
It makes you want to start going to garage sales and.
I mean, I've always done that. I've always done that. So.
I'm telling you.
In fact, I do it less now just because of time, and it kind of comes to me now. Which is nice,
Yeah.
My collection has gotten so good because of it. I'm actually now starting to liquidate stuff because I'm just like, geez, I got too much cool stuff now. I had to start focusing once I started working on Astro Zombies on what I wanted to collect, because before it was just like I wanted one action figure of every Marvel comic book character was, and every single Star Wars thing I could find, everything, pencils, sanitary products, action figures from 1977. It didn't matter if it was Star Wars, if it was labeled Star Wars. I was interested like a maniac.
Well, this is interesting. Again, kind of getting some research done in preparation for our conversation, I saw that Lucas and some of his guys had the idea of merchandise and went to this small collectible company, and I don't recall the name of that.
Kenner.
Yes, and the rest is history. Because and I didn't know that General Mills owned Kenner, the food conglomerate.
Right. I don't think they did back then.
Okay, no. But isn't that crazy?
Kenner actually went under after Star Wars because they really couldn't do anything.
Couldn't match it.
Right. There was nothing that they could make that, and Hasbro was knocking it out of the park with what they were doing, G.I. Joes, and then Mattel had the He-Man and Transformers, and so there was a lot of competition. And the whole reason Lucas was able to get the merchandising rights to Star Wars is because 20th Century Fox saw no value in it. So when he was like, I want the merchandising rights, they were like, yeah, you can have that, because at the time, and it's still true today, you don't sell a lot of product for a movie because it's there, then it's done, and then people move on.
I know. Isn't that crazy? That was probably the first, that you saw it
Basically,
everywhere.
it was the first movie franchise that did so well. And he was able to fund the second movie on his own just because he made so much money.
Merchandising. And now I think of Mel Brooks with Spaceballs.
Oh, yeah, Spaceballs, the movie.
Yeah, when he
Spaceballs
goes,
t-shirt.
and now the merchandise,
Yes,
the Schwartz be with you.
We almost got another one of those coming out soon.
Yes, it does.
And
it
he
is.
just turned 100.
Is he? He is 100.
I think, he just turned 100 last month, I believe.
I think he's driven. He wants to see that out. So
when they made History of the World Part 2, and it was so well received, I think he saw, okay, we could actually do something and not be terrible. And maybe make do something good, make a good sequel. Yeah, and so I'm fingers crossed.
Yeah, me too. Well, okay, you said action figure. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, because you're the expert, but I recently saw that G.I. Joe was considered the first action figure because of the kung fu grip and the hand motions. So 1964 or 5?
63.
Whoa.
64 is when the actual marking on the figures.
Right.
64 basically, but the concept is in 63 as far as getting the ball rolling. Of course, Barbie would predated that, but here's why the moniker action figure even exists. They didn't want to be called dolls because boy toys were significant. Yeah. Boys had tons of toys all the way from the beginning of the last century, to even now.
Right.
The boys' toys far outweigh the girl toys. Before you had paper dolls, right? You had a cutout of a girl and a cutout of a dress, and with little tabs, and you could bend those tabs over the paper girl, and that was it, right? Yeah. So when Barbie came out, it was based on a French prostitute. Actually. Wow, that's a whole other story.
Yeah.
But so they, it was supposed to be anatomically correct. There's one where her boobs got bigger, like all kinds of weird stuff.
And they've actually done studies where they showed that she would actually be like 6'6", and if she
she'd be impossible.
Anatomically,
she would be an impossible woman that we would be scared of.
well, real quick, you're good, because that was what I wanted to discuss with you was G.I. Joe as the first action figure. Yeah. And then,
so the reason it's actually the first action figure, and when we think about action figure, we think anatomical toy that's got some mobility, and you can play with it. Yeah. G.I. Joe wanted to be certain that they separated themselves from the dolls, so they invented the name action figure.
That is
so the reason
cool.
that G.I. Joe is considered the first action figure is because literally it is.
I had one of the first ones. I'm old enough to say it, probably 66, 65. I can still see that box, and it did say action figure. And then the grip came. They had the grip.
Was late 60s.
Yeah. But the last time I ever saw my action figure G.I. Joe was I'd shoved an Estes rocket engine into his torso and sent him off into the cornfield on our farm behind the house. Now I look back and I'm like, what was I thinking?
I recently sold one of those for $300. But it's got to have all the that was in the box, and it had
the dog tags.
Right, there's a dog tag, there's a whole uniform, there's paperwork that goes with it.
Well, yes, you're right. He had his papers.
Yeah.
Now this is interesting, and you're good because the whole Barbie connection. Again, my wife, the same thing. She had one of the early from that same period of Barbies. Yeah. But she decided to cut all the hair off, give them haircuts, and use permanent. Her dad was a graphic designer. Used permanent markers to put lipstick and makeup on the ladies. She still has them, and I've seen them. But it's like, oh my God! some of those are going for $5,000.
Yeah,
some of those
yeah.
originals.
You know, and I will say this about that.
Yeah.
We can lament all we want
Right.
because I was a monster to my G.I. Joes.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I still have a lot of them, but they had holes in them. I would heat up on the gas stove. I would take a hanger, one of those wire hangers, heat that end up and straighten it out, you know, and then give them these gaping bullet wounds in their brain and stuff, and like, you know, just battle damage is what I called it. Some of those things are worth so much money, you know, and of course replaced them all. My G.I. Joe collection now is ridiculous.
Well,
but,
yeah, because
and I've got all the things I never got.
Wow,
now
that's interesting. You know, so many dudes I've met our age group, you know, and older. You wonder why the guitar thing exploded like this. Because a lot of guys said, I finally have money. I always wanted a guitar. I couldn't afford an electric guitar when I was a kid.
Right.
So what they do? They go and buy 10. Same thing with cars. All the cool guys had the nice cars in high school. Yeah. I was driving a 4-door Matador.
Yeah.
And suddenly I had the money.
Hey,
I
that's
can
a
now,
cool car
yeah,
now.
Yeah, well, yeah.
In hindsight.
Yeah. But you know what I'm saying? So that's
100%.
That's so true, man. I hear you.
And are we filling the holes that we never had, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, I feel like that's part of it. But I've been collecting the toys for a long time.
Yeah.
But I definitely grew up not, you know,
I
wheeled and dealed and stole, unfortunately,
Yeah.
to get my early toys.
Yeah.
You know, the Garbage Pail Kids, the Transformers, the G.I. Joes, all those were like muscle men, trades, and
I'm there.
finagles.
I'm there. I lost. You look back on it, man. So many albums. You know, my cousin gave
yeah.
me like some of the original Yardbird albums. Gave them to friends. Hey, I'll lend this to you, but I'll get it back, right?
No, of course not.
No. And then we moved apart. Fabulous Furry Freak Brothers. I had the whole collection of Zap comics,
So those are,
and they're gone.
there's like 20 different
Yeah.
printings of those, but those first ones are valuable.
I had them, and I was a sales rep in I guess 7th or 8th grade
For Kitchen Sink Press?
for Zap Comics.
Okay.
And how they reimbursed me while I was selling subscriptions, they gave me one of their shirts, and later it was in a mug shop. That's another story. We'll go there some other time. But yeah,
excited to hear that. One.
Yeah. But
especially wearing the Zap Comics.
Yeah, exactly. Oh,
anybody
God,
knows, they're like, that's why
if
he's.
I had that Zap comic T-shirt, I actually said, "Can I get a copy to the Schaumburg Police Department? Could I get a copy of this photo?" And he said,
Schaumburg, Illinois.
Yeah, Illinois.
Yeah.
Beginnings. The club was there, so that's why I was there for a gig. But he said to me, he goes, "No, you cannot get a copy of this photo."
That's the Rio Rancho of Chicago.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Except for, everybody's driving Mustangs and Rio Rancho, and they're all driving Beamers.
Yes.
Through the middle of parking lots and double parking in Chicago.
And now the new one is, oh my God, what are they driving now? Yeah, Maseratis are the new.
Oh, wow.
That's the new one there.
Poor guys.
Oh, yeah.
You know how expensive it is to keep one of those cars up? Super cool.
Yeah, but
yeah.
So let me ask. Okay, so getting to know you, but who's your customer at Astro Zombie? Is it young? Is it old? Is it everybody?
Yes.
Is it, okay.
We try to make it for kids, because
Right.
they're also the future.
Right.
So
Right.
you cater to the kids when they're young,
Yeah.
and they will be continuing to
for
be
years.
customers forever, just like I.
There's your franchise, your legacy. Right.
Right. As long as comic books keep popularity going, and the movies kind of really boosted that, and now the movies have kind of like drug it down. But you still got the hardcores, and you still have the people who. I'm not going to say it's recession-proof, my business, but it's close to recession-proof because
I agree.
Everybody's got to escape,
Yeah.
and have now, whatever you think of what's going on in the world right now, it's probably bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's time to escape a little bit.
Yeah, a little
and
fantasy, and to have something that you're into, a character, a collection.
Right, exactly. There's something called the Wednesday Warrior, and traditionally for decades, comic books have come out on Wednesdays.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, so that's the release date. Warner Brothers got bought by AT&T, and they tried to change that to Tuesdays, and they just recently, last few months, have gone back to Wednesdays because it didn't work out. But I'll tell you what, it really hurt our business.
Wow.
The movies, loss of popularity is part of it as well.
Right.
You didn't see a lot of crossover, but you did. The merchandise for comic books definitely skyrocketed.
Yeah.
The comic book sales peaked.
Yeah.
But it wasn't too crazy, and it didn't suffer too much when the movies have kind of lost favor.
Right.
So now, though, there's been some really good stories in the DC and the Marvel universe that people are loving. So Wednesday has been back for a few months.
That's really
now,
cool.
which is super great.
So all right. So it's everyone, but
Right. I try to specifically in my shop have
Younger.
something. No.
Oh.
I have tried to have something for everyone.
Really?
And that's where the records kind of come in.
Well, yeah.
Everybody loves records, especially, like the blue hairs are like, I used to have 78s. And you're like, okay.
Well, it's interesting. We just had a Make-A-Wish party for a young woman, and we gave her a phonograph player.
A turntable.
The little ones that you travel with.
Like a portable one?
That I hadn't seen since, the era of my grandmother, because, our generation was to have the turntable with the big amp.
Right. The American Access
But
system.
it was cute because the mother said, my God, records, you can get records again? And we're like,
it's crazy popular now.
I know. So,
I really thought records had gone the way of the dodo, especially in the the beginning of the century.
Yeah.
Because they had already kind of been dismissed in the late 80s with tapes.
Right. And then
CDs just buried them.
Yeah. And
except for me, who was a vinyl DJ.
Yeah. Well.
So, I was cool and like part of this small group.
But do you remember moving? I mean, I have over 2,000 record albums, and oh my God, it was always and then there's that famous scene in the movie Diner where the woman touches the guy's record collection. He goes, "What did you just do? Did you put that? It's alphabetical from left to right. Did you just rearrange?" So it was,
I had a girlfriend in high school. My tapes were the same way.
Yeah.
And we broke up, and she started dating my roommate.
Oh boy.
Well, apparently to get back at me, she went to my alphabetical tapes and moved them all around to see what I would say and see if I got pissed. Of course, I was like, why are these in different places?
Yes.
But I didn't quite give her the reaction she expected. But I completely get it. And as a vinyl DJ, I still do a monthly vinyl record show. I just did it on Friday, and
we're coming to one of those. I have to see that.
I have to, as a digital DJ, you bring your headphones and your thumb drive, and you have thousands of songs on that little thumb drive, and that's it. As a vinyl DJ, growing up as a vinyl DJ, it's crates of records,
oh, man.
And records are heavy. A whole crate of records is like 90 pounds.
Yep.
And then I have to bring my turntables, and of course my coffin for my turntables is as long as I am, and it weighs like 200 pounds. It's not even a one-person job, and I keep thinking to myself, I don't get paid enough to do this, but I'm not doing it for the money, right? Like I definitely don't get paid enough to do it. So I'm just doing it because I want to.
Well, this is interesting. I was the late 70s era of the big hair, the boots, and the big Ampeg amp and Marshall stacks. So I go to a gig in Chicago, probably around 2012 or so, and it was Mouse on Mars, the EDM group.
Yes.
From Germany.
I'm very familiar with that.
And they walk in, and a friend of mine was the bartender, so of course I was there, and I said to the woman working the gate at the door, I said, hey, so I'm here to see Mouse on Mars. And she goes, I go, what are they? She goes, some kind of krautrock. But she said, but here's the best part. They're over there having dinner, and I look, and there's two guys quietly having their dinner before the show. And they got up to go into the performance space, and they each had a Apple MacBook Pro.
Oh, yeah. Oh.
And that was it.
In the early 80s, right?
Yeah. But I said to him, I go, she goes, oh, yeah, that's all they brought. So the show was on, this was 2012.
Oh, okay. Because it was like...
they had their laptops, but I just went, really? And that was it.
Yeah,
they got up
now
on stage.
You don't have to have Moogs. You don't have to have 808s. It's all right there on the laptop.
I saw the thumb drive come out. They plugged in. The lights came on. But, dude, I hear you. So doing vinyl as a DJ.
it's a Warriors, pacts of, and I was one of the ones that held out for a long time.
Yeah, I did too.
In the early, first off, I held on to tapes.
Yeah, so did
way
I.
longer than I should have, just because.
I have racks. Yeah.
I thought CDs sucked. I still think CDs suck.
No,
so if a band I liked was putting out a tape and a CD, I was buying the tape. The sound sucks, but I was mostly into punk rock back then.
Yeah.
So. Who cares? That was about the emotion and the message.
EPs, man, the vinyl. I still have all my Clash, all those early albums. Okay. I have an original, Damn the Bullocks,
Never mind the Bullocks, the Sex Pistols. Yes, one of my favorite records of all time.
Now, this is interesting you said that because this is great, man. We're covering all these different points ahead. Joe Walsh was one of the artists who said, there's something wrong with CDs. And he went to Warner Brothers, one of the major labels, and said, hey, you guys are getting this wrong. He goes, who's mixing these things?
Right.
He said, you're issuing them. They have you know what I mean? And he was the one who fought for that. You're wrecking the sound of my records by putting them out on CDs, and the mix is bad. What did you do?
You call it, as an audiophile, which I don't necessarily call myself, but warmth.
Yeah.
You can feel the warmth of that music, right?
Yeah.
And that's why, let's fast forward from the early 90s when records fell out of favor unless you were a record DJ. And then 2000s when MP3s happened, and just like say goodbye to the vinyl.
I know.
And we even had a store. The Astro Zombies had a sister store called Damaged Goods. They shared a wall, same owner,
Wow.
and it was all vinyl, and it was punk-centric record store.
Yeah.
And eventually he was like, "Oh, I'm not going to sell anything because nobody's buying anything."
Yeah, that's
but,
crazy.
10 years ago, for whatever reason,
Yeah.
I'm going to blame the hipsters or thank the hipsters. It's that the motion, the act of the
Putting
lethargy.
it down, the feeling, that sound, I can still... And, some of the newer bands have actually gone back and they're putting the sound effect of the crinkling and the crackling.
Right. That's like the dirty record sound.
Yeah. But we can also thank Jack White. I mean, Jack White has done so much in Detroit and now in Nashville with pressing albums again.
What's his name from the Black Keys, too? He saved one of the record presses because he wanted it for himself.
Right.
It's one of the few left, and so
that's incredible.
Right now with the popularity of records, they're really scrambling. They have been trying to keep up with demand.
Yeah.
So it's hard to have records in print.
I got to go to my storage unit and see what hell's going on with my vinyl.
Make sure it's not in the heat, my friend.
Yeah, I know. No, I'm pretty good about that. But yeah, I may come see you. I have an original Dark Side of the Moon, Pink Floyd. It's the West German master recording, the thick one.
Oh, okay.
One of the first presses. Yeah. Yeah.
So I will say, when it comes to bands like the Beatles and especially that Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon, I think it's still in the Billboard Top 100.
Yeah,
I think it has the record for the most time. And
never went away.
Right.
Yeah.
So the amount of printings of that record is astronomical.
Yeah.
They're like the Katy Perry of that era, right? Or the Taylor Swift of
Taylor
that era.
Swift, thank you very much.
Right.
Yeah.
I said Katy Perry.
Yeah. But no, I knew
when
exactly
her era
what you
was
were
the
doing.
same thing,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
There's tons of those. There's over 1,000 different printings of.
My God.
I'm not saying like 1,000 of one printing,
Right.
Different printings.
Well,
with different numbers or different pressing plants. Typically in Germany, it's GEMA, Gemma.
Okay,
and
I will
so
check
you'll have
that
a
out.
Gemma
I gotta
label
look at that
on
on
your
the
thing.
label. Yeah.
But anyways,
Yeah.
unless it's one of those rare ones, like it sounds like you have.
Yeah.
$10 if you're lucky. Just because dime a dozen, there was hundreds of
but before we move on and back to Astro Zombie, one last one. The vinyl thing was, I have a friend who's one of the world's. The guy from Hot Tuna was one of the world's largest collectors.
Okay.
My buddy Jeff Carlson was somewhere in Chicago, was in that vein. He had 35,000 records.
Jesus, imagine.
Yeah, in the house was. But anyway, the reason I bring it up is he would tell me that he had worn out 10 copies of Who's Next by The Who.
Okay.
Literally, he was a Who freak, and he had worn them out with needles playing them.
Right. So the needle, every time you play a record, it degrades the record a little bit. Now, here's the kicker part. And this is the part that I didn't even know about until a few years ago. If you listen to it a second time, you tenfold the degradation because it warms up the record. And so then if you listen to it repeatedly, it actually starts to really, like, the material that the record is made out of starts to just mush.
And if you're you're an audiophile and a vinyl guy, I would listen to the same song if I happen to like it 3-4 times in a row.
Right.
Especially if I was trying to pick it out for my guitar or whatever, I'd listen to it 10 times.
Right.
And then that explains why it sounded so bad.
I still have my dad's Techniques 1310 that he gave me when I was in high school.
Oh.
That's still my listener. It has a repeat function.
Yeah. Oh,
so if I
remember that? It would play it again.
Yeah, I would pick it up, bring it back to the bottom, drop it down. So if I was having some intimate time with a girl, maybe just put that on, there's a few records that really got worn out because of that.
So it didn't get to the end and sit there and just keep going.
Right. That
for 3 hours.
Needle. Right. 3 hours. Wow. Impressive.
I would fall asleep.
There you go. There you go. It was 5 minutes, and then the 3 hours was just waking back up.
Yeah, good point, but touche. But so let me ask, browsers, or do you get a lot of like hardcore, customers who are
So there's
coming
both.
in?
There's both. We have a subscription process where comic books come out once a month, and it's a story. It's just like if you're watching your favorite television show.
Yeah.
The way they used to do it.
Right.
Where it comes out once a week.
Serial.
Comics.
Yeah.
Serial. Exactly. So they would come out once a month. Sometimes Spider-Man comes out twice a month or whatever.
Right.
So you subscribe to that. That way you don't necessarily miss an issue. Back in the day when you read comic books from the 60s, they repeat or like explain to you what happened in the previous issue very redundantly throughout the rest of the comic book that you're reading, because the chances are you didn't get that book because they sold them at the Safeways, they sold them at the Circle K's, and you had the hope that you got your issue.
Yeah. Otherwise, you didn't. It wasn't continual.
Right. Comic book stores didn't happen until the early 70s.
Okay.
So
Got it.
that's when the subscription concept kind of started. We have over 300 subscribers. So that's kind of the bread and butter of what we do, you know. It's this person likes Spider-Man, they like Batman, they like the X-Men.
That's
so
incredible.
they get at least one Batman title a month, one Spider-Man title a month, one X-Men. And then there's other guys who get all the X-Men, all the Spider-Man, all the Batman, and that's a lot because there's 7 different Batman titles going on at the same time, etc.
Well, let me ask. I saw something that graphic novel market has doubled since pre-pandemic, right? Like 2019, right before all hell broke loose.
Right.
It has doubled. I mean, people say they're not, no one's reading anymore. I don't think so.
That's definitely not true.
That's not true.
Like I said, escapism is huge, especially now.
Yeah,
people
great.
People are just. I know I don't want to read the news half the time. I'm just oh geez.
Thank you.
Oh geez, what today?
I'll take a Marvel comic over. Yes,
right, exactly.
I agree.
So,
dude, that's so true.
There's a lot of people that just need to, decompress and escape the drama or nonsense of their normal life.
Right.
And so that's where the comic books come into,
So okay, so you've got the comics, and I've been into your shop, and we'll talk about vinyl in a little bit, kind of what you've done there, but collectibles. What are some
they
of
kind
the
of go hand in hand
Okay.
with comic books and also records.
Yeah, that's interesting.
So, comic books started to become popular as like financially
Right.
early 80s.
Yeah.
People were like, oh, okay, Batman first appeared in Detective Comics 27. I want to try and find one of those. So the next thing you know.
Like everything else.
Right. So then next thing you know, that's a $200 comic.
Yeah.
Then it's a $5,000 comic.
Yeah.
Then it's a $20,000 comic. Now that book you can't get for less than $1 million, unless it's like missing the cover and stuff. And even that, one of my buddies has the kid cut out Action Comics #1, which is first Superman.
Oh.
And this is very common, and this is a point I actually meant to get to earlier. If people didn't destroy the stuff back then, it wouldn't be as valuable now.
Yeah.
I was going to say that with the G.I. Joes.
Because the numbers went down, and
Right.
what's the quantity or
supposedly like 27 of those Action Comics #1 exist.
Man.
My buddy has one where the inside of the book is the original book, but the cover was destroyed by the kid who had it. So what they did was they photocopied back and front,
It made it
glued the pieces of
Isn't
the
that
cutouts
amazing?
onto the thing. It's still a 6-figure comic.
I'd rather have that. That is so cool. To
Right.
think of the passion.
So the pedigree thing is super important, and it's actually one of my more bigger passions when it comes to collectibles.
Yeah.
Where did this come from? Why did somebody do this? Like, how did they, a lot of stuff's been read, but recently I've been, buying collections of action figures and toys, and like, for instance, my friend Jesse, I ended up with his like Japanese robot collection, but he had a Lobot from Empire Strikes Back Star Wars, and he had painted like fire eyes and like some robotic stuff on him and made him like this like Japanese anime character. And so I'm not going to sell that in the shop because it's worthless, right? But what it is now is in my collection because it's this cool,
It's
weird little
rare.
thing, and it's the
Customized.
pedigree, right? It's
Dude, that's so
some
cool.
kid modified this toy. And I now own it, and that's kind of fun for me.
Yeah, that's really cool. Man, what an amazing conversation with Chris. We discussed so many interesting stories and topics, we thought it best to do a second episode on Chris's commitment to running a shop as a community hub, supporting local artists, and staying authentic while navigating success in business. Stay tuned for the next episode when we'll continue this conversation.